Looky what we have here.
Hey guys, Nick here. Welcome to part 8 of What If Eastman Survived. Last time, we pretty much wrapped up all closure after the Wolf arc, and starting slowly but surely getting into the Savior arc, with the satellite outpost being very touched upon in terms of Eastman and Morgan's influence being there, and Carol paying Eastman a visit unexpectedly after Eastman and Morgan have a long talk about what will happen going forward and how they feel about the decision. Now, we're going to see what Carol wants with Eastman. Carol approaches Eastman after Eastman and Morgan's long talk. Eastman is puzzled by this. He knew Carol to be apprehensive towards him. They never really talked. Barely. And the only time they really did talk was when they saved her. But he is okay by this and asks her what does she need. And Carol begins to cry. And this isn't some fake cry. This completely comes out of nowhere. And Eastman is very puzzled. But Carol explains. Ever since Eastman arrived, she's just ignored him, put him off, treated him as if he were some kind of trash. But after helping Pete and seeing how Morgan was helped, everything, the wolves, and the influence, especially at the satellite outpost, Carol finally found remorse towards him and remembered how she felt before. All this time, she really finally noticed how much becoming a killer has influenced her, and she came to apologize and wonder if Eastman would accept her as his next student. Now, Eastman, of course, he accepts this with open arms, and he is very glad and puzzled at the same time about Carol's story with him, even though he detected Carol's attitude with him pretty much a bit after he arrived. But he accepts this and is glad that Carol made this decision. And soon enough, Carol learns Aikido and becomes the next student in line with Eastman, helping Carol's character development, and this time, she's not going to go away. Daryl, on the other hand, is the next one we have to worry about. Because remember, Dwight, Denise, that whole scene still happened. Nothing differed there. There was nothing to change that whole thing. So Daryl's still going to want to go after Dwight. But Eastman stops him. He sees shortly after talking to Carol. Just think about that for a sec. Talks to Morgan, and then talks to Carol. Now Daryl. Eastman is really, really, really influential here. Much more so than I guess a lot of people would come to understand. So he goes to see Daryl, who's about to leave, and quickly goes to stop him, feeling and knowing what he's trying to do. But Daryl says that there's nothing he can do. He's going after Dwight, and even though he is admitted to Eastman's help and understanding what he's done, that doesn't mean that he's going to listen to every single little thing he says. He's got no idea what has been happening outside of him being around. He had no idea what happened to Denise, what it meant to Daryl, Tara. He doesn't know what loss feels like. Eastman, holding himself back immensely, remembering his own past, but being the kind person that he is not to get angry completely, just takes a deep breath and tells Daryl that if he goes out there, it won't bring him any happiness. It won't make him feel better. He's going for himself. But Daryl says it wouldn't just be for him. Tara's gone. She doesn't know that Denise is dead. And people that cared about Denise, the way that she said she cared about him, it's something that he can't just avoid. He tried to help Dwight, and he turned traitor on him and went to the wrong side. He made his choice, and Daryl's going to make his by going to stop him. And that Eastman, he might have lost someone, maybe, but he really does not know what loss feels like, bringing back old memories of Merle and Beth into his mind. But Eastman says that he is 110% completely wrong, and feels that Daryl never understood or heard the story behind his past, and explains it, which Daryl surprisingly listens to, although parts of it, just like Morgan, he refuses to understand. Eastman proves Daryl completely wrong by saying that he's not alone in this world. No one is. Everybody has lost someone. And losing that made him who he is, made him understand a better path. And if it didn't happen that way, he and his family would have probably bitten the dust right when everything started. Daryl takes all this in and angrily says, "Fine." He drops the bike to the ground, throwing it to the side, and angrily says, "Fine, I'll stay. But if you think for 1 second that this means that we're friends, you're wrong. Any respect for you I had is out the window. You doing this is probably going to lead to something different. And from what you've done, you'll be able to deal with it, just like you've helped with everything here. And if it all goes to crap because of Dwight, it's your fault." And Eastman says that if that were to come to pass, or that it will, he'll own it, just with everybody else, and they'll back him up. And he's not saying this in a sarcastic or cocky way. He means it. And he says that he doesn't expect Daryl to forgive him, but he wants to be heard and thanked for saving his life. But Daryl just walks away. Soon enough, after some time passes, by some time I mean like maybe a few hours in that time, an episode or two, give or take, Maggie's pregnancy eventually advances to the point where we gotta take her to Hilltop to get all that stuff situated out for the lineup scene. Now you would think, judging on people's, or at least one person's opinion, that Maggie wouldn't have to go. But Pete, even though he was a surgeon, it was never proven that he could deal with pregnancy, especially since he was just shown to be a jerk. So yeah, we're still gonna have to go to Hilltop. Differences. Carol is still around, and with a much better character with Aikido. Morgan is still around because the only reason that he left, and that anyone left, was because Carol and Daryl both left the group. But since they're both here, that means things are going to go a little bit easier. But there's going to be ramifications towards that. Eastman tells Morgan that he should stay behind with everybody else. He has joined him on everything since they met. It's about time that he takes a break. He stays behind, just in case more of the saviors happen to stow upon Alexandria while they're gone or something like that. And if it were not to kill them, obviously, try to change their ways if somehow, some way that works. And just says that he deserves some time to think for himself. Carl is also the next one who we gotta talk about with character development, besides, still having two eyes, because, it's not really too much of a difference besides making Carl all the more savage. But because of his character, he's not going to lock Enid in the closet. This isn't the first time I've done this either. Enid once went to the lineup in my What If Laurie Survived series, where Laurie more or less stepped in instead of Carl to let her go. But this time, Carl just lets her come along. Now, besides Gabriel and obviously obvious ones, who's going to be at Alexandria? Well, I already mentioned Morgan, but who else? Since we have some characters that lived, and so on. Well, the list comes down to Gabriel and obvious ones like that, along with Owen, Ron, Sam, Jesse, Denise, Pete, and Morgan. Morgan, of whom stayed behind, and everybody else on this list has survived past their original death date. Owen and Pete being the Aikido members alongside Morgan to have proper warriors and Gabriel to defend Alexandria from saviors if they are to come along. Soon enough, they unexpectedly get their wish. Because of Carol not leaving, Hero and those little band of saviors on the truck make their way to Alexandria, because that's where they were going to go. Carol just got in the way. But soon enough, they arrive at Alexandria, at the gates, and say that they have 5 seconds to get everybody out here and give them all their stuff. But Morgan says that he is going to make the same deal that he made with those at the satellite outposts, to Paula and all the rest. They have one of two choices. They can either turn tail and never come back, or they can join them, and they all work together. Nobody has to die. He tried making that deal with Paula and the Saviors. They chose wrong. But this is their choice, their chance of more Saviors to choose the right side. But Hero and the other Saviors, they say exactly what they said to Carol when she said that nobody had to get hurt. And it looks like somebody's gotta get hurt. And with that, they make their poor choice, and the men start to empty out of the truck and aim their guns. But against Morgan's better judgment, and a few of the others at Alexandria, they gun them down without a second thought, because there really weren't that many of them. There were like 6, including Hero himself. And Carol took them all down by herself. So for the people here, it really isn't that much of a problem. But the savior that shot Carol almost dead before Morgan shot him fatally in the original still survives. And unlike any of the other saviors, he actually is the only one to survive, because a few survived, like Hero and them in the original. He's the only one to survive this time because of different circumstances. But he, unbeknownst to anyone, survives, pulls out his gun, and shoots. And the unknowingly sad victim is Deanna, who was shot fatally in the heart, falls to the ground. Nobody saw the shot or even knew he survived. It was all split-second reaction. So unfortunately, Deanna bleeds out and dies. But she was shot in the heart. Just then, once everybody notices what happened, and that Deanna has been shot by the savior that survived, everybody loads down on him until the savior is nothing more than a human skull with bullet holes in it. And yep, that ends up their little savior group right there. So no meeting the kingdom yet, or anything like that. And Daryl and nobody else got kidnapped, so we're getting a much different entrance into the savior arc, with Spencer once again being the one to put Deanna down. But this time, it's in a Spencer-like fashion, since Rick put Spencer down in the original on the ground. This time, in this story, Spencer's putting his mother Deanna down on the ground. So it's kind of like a role reversal, if you will. Now, Rick and everybody else, accompanied with Eastman and Carol and Enid, and, obvious ones, encounter Simon and more saviors on the road. And we get into the entrance of what that might happen. But what will happen? Will Eastman's influence maybe not make the lineup happen at all? With everything that's been influenced, will the saviors actually work together when Negan arrives? Or has killing the saviors on the road and really wantingly killing the saviors at the satellite outpost caused too much damage? And that's where we leave things for the moment. On a cliffhanger, if the saviors will actually end up maybe working together with the group, with Eastman involved, or if Eastman's time might just be cut short. And that's where we leave things for the moment. Like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we're about to get into some real hefty stuff going into the Savior arc. Like and subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys in the next video.
Hope you enjoyed the show, assholes!
I like you and your big old massive lady nuts.
Name's Negan.